Hello, this is Dr. Ron Kaiser, and we're back to our series, Growing Older with Enthusiasm. And today it's a little bit different than some of the sessions we've presented for you. I'm actually recording it on the Monday after Thanksgiving of 2024. The Monday after Thanksgiving of 2023 is the last day that Libby was alive, and she died on that day. And so I thought that it would be good to share some ideas about loss, because when we're talking about growing older with enthusiasm, we can't neglect the fact that part of growing older is there will be some losses, and that may be personal losses in terms of family members, friends, and so on. In some cases, it means a loss of community. Some people retire, move to another place where they don't know anybody, but they're moving for the weather. There's lots of different kinds of losses. There may be losses in terms of the financial lifestyle that you may have been earning and aren't earning as much now, or in a position to spend as much. There may be health losses. You may want to be able to do some things that you can't because now you have to be closer to your doctor. You don't want to take the chance of getting ill or injured in another place. So the concept of loss encompasses a lot of things, and I thought it'd be wise to spend a few minutes helping you to deal with the thing that we all are going to have to deal with at times, and probably multiple times.
All right, Dr. Ron.
So, uh, with that introduction, I do want to now present, my co-host Neil Haley, who hopefully is going to ask me some questions about that.
All right, Dr. Ron. Yeah, it's great to have you back and to talk about loss. I mean, that's such a, we talked about gratitude in the last podcast. And when you talk about loss, that's one where it takes a lot of the wind out of our sails. We could be feeling really good about ourselves and we lose a loved one, we lose money, we lose a job, lose a client. And it's something especially that can take us down a route we don't want to take. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that I think it made a lot of sense to present the topic of gratitude first, because I think that it is important to always keep in mind what we're grateful for, because that helps us to keep loss in perspective so that we're not defining ourselves and our lives by the loss, but that it is, and I don't want to minimize this, but it is one part of our life in addition to other things going on in our lives that can be great, that we can be grateful for. We can even be grateful for some things as we reflect on the loss.
Yeah, because when we reflect on that loss, what do we do in that way and be grateful? How, like, that's the thing, is how can we be grateful for a loss of, let's say, a job or a client?
Well, I think first of all, we learn something from every experience. So I know in football, the quarterback for our team, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, always says that you either win or you learn. And I think that it's a real important thing to keep in mind, that, if we have a job loss, if we have a loss of a client, if we have a loss of a friend through whatever reason. And this year, there have been people who've lost friendships over political beliefs. So, the fact is, it's important to recognize losses will occur. So let's learn from every experience, and let's not wait until after the loss to appreciate and learn from it. I know I've told people one of the great things, probably the wrong choice of words, but one of the great things about the loss of my spouse that I've experienced in relation to that is to recognize that I have very few regrets because we told each other that we loved each other. We spent quality time together. Um, so that there are things that um, the 53 years of memory that I'm experiencing is great. It's not as good as the real thing. There's no way of, sugarcoating it in that way. But, um, to be able to have some appreciation for what that uh, togetherness, that friendship, or even in business, what that job provided, what that client or friend or associate provided. It's real important to keep that in mind and ideally to appreciate it before the loss because losses do occur.
And then that's where the recovery begins and the process, how long that process begins of the loss. Losses can take time to recover. Other losses can pop back up quickly. You have to really work on those ways of recovering, and that's grief, right? And you can discuss the series of what you should deal with when dealing with grief. Kind of explain that to us. Like once any loss is going to bring grief and there's going to be areas to look at. How do we make sure we're recovering correctly and not just bouncing back too quickly?
Well, I don't know that there's a correct way that is general because I think what's correct for everybody for one person may not be correct for other people. But I do think that the important thing to recognize is what you had mentioned, Neil. I mean, there is this profound loss and recovery is necessary. It's a necessary component of it. So don't pretend that you're Superman or Superwoman and that you don't have to go through that period. May not be the same as somebody else does, but it's important to recognize that it's going to hit you sometime. So acknowledge the fact that you're going through it. You may be doing, you know, great. I mean, I spoke at my wife's funeral. There are some spouses who couldn't who know that they couldn't. But, it was something that I didn't fall apart immediately, but things would hit me at various times. Sometimes, again, if it's the loss of a business associate or a client or something like that, um, you'll get a memory of sometime when, geez, it would have been good to use his advice, or if I'd have done this way, maybe I could have maintained this friendship longer, stuff like that. I mean, in my case, again, I am very proud of the relationship that we had and things that would I wouldn't have predicted uh, would bother me did. When the first time that I changed the sheets on our bed and recalled, hey, this we got these sheets at Bed Bath and Beyond just before they went out of business, and we did. Uh, when you get to be a certain age, you don't have a lot of things to shop for, but things like sheets and so on that you eventually have to keep replenishing. Uh, so when we would go shopping, a lot of times it would be as a couple, and we might have lunch while we're out there and so on. So that triggers a memory that was a little more profound than say some of the things that I expected, like milestone birthdays and holidays and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that's definitely an important thing that you talk about in that process in the milestone is to go through that and you remember these things about that person that you might have not thought about till after they were gone. And I think that that's the thing. And then certain things bring up certain aspects to that loss, depending on the loss, and say, oh my gosh, I remember when, or I remember this. And how does this relate to winning in overtime in a lot of ways?
Well, number one, I think, if we compare ourselves to going through some kind of game, if you're playing any type of sport, there are very few shutouts. There are very few games in which other teams don't get goals or runs or whatever we're defining. And, I think that we have to look at the fact that that doesn't have to derail us from pursuing that winning strategy. And part of winning in overtime is recognition that uh, life goes on, that the loss is part of me, but it's not the best part of me. Uh, it's something that can help me to grow from, uh, to accept, to not get stuck, because if I get stuck with a particular strategy that, hey, I just have to, bear this for a month. Um, can't put that kind of time frame on. So as soon as you experience the loss, recognize it's a part of you, recognize that you are a winner, and part of being a winner means dealing with some struggles. And how do we get past this struggle? I would also point out, and this is where I can help some people, just as I've been helped, that sometimes when you're dealing with something that you haven't fully experienced before, and it's very difficult to, study for or practice for or experience a loss, but sometimes you need help. You need a coach. You may need somebody to uh, provide that kind of support and direction and focusing on the fact that, hey, this is not who you are. The loss doesn't define you. It's a part of you. What can we learn from it? How can we restore your best sense of self moving forward? And again, I would certainly invite people to contact me if you feel that I can be of help to you, because again, there's no way you can practice for it. Some people uh, seem to be better equipped to handle it on their own than others, but it's not a sign of weakness if you need help to deal with something that you haven't experienced before.
Yeah, and that loss. And then other things that are coming down the line. I think sometimes when we plan too much through a specific loss, now knowing we have time to prepare ourselves to recover, if you have that time to recover, you should be happy you have that time to recover. Not like you have to just bounce back tomorrow. You have some time to recover, time to reorganize yourself in so many ways so that you can go through this process and not feel so overwhelmed, because being overwhelmed is not a good idea either.
Right. And I do think that it's also important to think in terms of what challenges can make you a better person now. For example, a week ago, I went to a surprise birthday party for a friend of mine. Well, it's his wife. They're both friends of mine, where aside from them, who I knew would be busy, um, I didn't know a soul there. And yet I felt, this is something I've got to do. I knew if Libby were alive, I could rely on her. She's very social and so on. Um, but, this is something that I need to do. I need to figure out experiences for the new me, um, or me in the new phase of my life, and see these things as not things to avoid, but challenges that help to make me better. And it seems almost sacrilegious or disrespectful to think in those terms, but you always, if you're a winner, you always think in terms of winning in overtime, and you always want to think of what makes you better prepared to win in overtime. And building my own support system, being able to meet new people. I did meet somebody, we exchanged business cards, um, met several people who um, could be friends. I don't know how that will work out. But it was a great experience that I don't regret. Uh, and I think we've always got to be looking for those kinds of things because that's what winners do. They don't shy away from challenges, they move forward with them. And the fact that you've experienced a loss is not a reason to not move forward.
All right, fantastic. Best place people can find you, Dr. Ron Kaiser, anywhere on social media. Check you out on your website. Check out your multiple websites, social media, YouTube channel. Appreciate it, Dr. Ron. A really good conversation to really reflect going into December and this holiday season about loss. Thanks again, Dr. Ron.
Thank you.
All right, that was Growing Older with Enthusiasm, guys. Take care.